How to make beautiful looking holes in acrylic. I like to work from a jig because it's better to route the hole into the workpiece rather than try to directly make the hole. That probably won't look as nice. And I work with a router that has the end bearing like this, which follows the jig as you use it to make the hole in the acrylic. So to start off, you need some sort of material to make your jig out of, and that could be another piece of acrylic like this. This is an actual jig I have that makes 1-inch holes into acrylic, and this is a piece of that PVC board I use to make a 3-inch jig. It doesn't have to be circular. I made this jig for making 3 by 3-inch square holes in acrylic. But anyhow, let's look at making a jig here. Let's say I want to make a 1.5-inch hole. So I'm going to use a scrap piece of acrylic. And there are many ways to do it. I know you can use a whole jig that you can buy for a router. You can use CNC equipment, but we're going to assume you don't have all that stuff. You just want to make it fairly simple as possible. One way is to buy a hole saw at the size that you need it. And what I'm going to do is use the hole saw to cut the hole into this piece of scrap acrylic, which will become the jig. So what I've done is used a T-square, of course I made it out of acrylic, and drew some lines on my jig. And that will be the position of where I'll drill into the acrylic with the hole saw. And the nice thing being acrylic, because it's clear, these lines can be used as indexing lines like I did here. So when you put it on your workpiece, you can accurately locate where the hole's going to be. Okay, on the drill press here, you can use a hand drill if you don't have a drill press, but this makes it a little easier. So I got the correct size hole saw I'm going to use here, and a piece of wood as a backstop. I couldn't find one, I just have a piece of drywall that'll work. So what we're going to do here, I have to use my other hand. See, with that indexing hole there, you can kind of feel your way as you're lowering that. You can kind of feel it and get the piece of acrylic centered up so it drills right in the center of your crosshairs there. So I'll do that. I can't operate this machine with one hand. I need 2 hands to do it, so I have to turn the camera off. Okay, the hole has been drilled. As you're going along, just go in slightly and back off. Go in deeper, back off. Just don't try to power through it. You'll overheat the acrylic. It'll melt, and the hole may not be perfectly round in that case. The end result is a bit rough though. It will need some sandpaper to clean it up a bit before we move on. Okay, so I took some sandpaper and sanded the hole, making it smooth. I can't really do it one-handed, but now that follower bearing will ride in that hole nice and smooth and make a nice hole in the actual piece that we're cutting. So let's get that prepared. Okay, so I found this piece of scrap acrylic. We'll just say this is our workpiece we want to put the hole into. So I marked the center lines and drilled a hole. Now you have to drill that hole because you have to get that router bit into there. So what I'm going to do now is fit the jig over the hole and line it up. And I'll use jigging tape. What I use is carpet tape. This is fiberglass carpet tape. You can buy a roll of this stuff. It's not that expensive. I got this roll for like $3 and something. It's double-sided carpet tape. It's really strong. I use it for jigging purposes. So I'm going to stick it on the jig here so I can attach it to the workpiece. Okay, with the jigging tape I have attached the jig to the workpiece and use those center lines to line everything up. Now, just a little hint I should mention. When you make the jig, I would use at least 3/16 or 1/4 inch acrylic, because you have to make sure that there is a bit of space between the bearing and the cutting blades. So you've got to make sure that's covered. Another hint, you can reuse this tape. If you're going to do multiple cuts, you don't have to keep applying new tape. Matter of fact, I can get probably 25 or 30 cuts out of one use of this tape here. Like on this jig here, I have the jig tape covered. So I save this masking that came from the tape here when I originally cut it. When I'm done, I just stick it over that tape and it preserves that for later use. Okay, I have my trim router with the flush trim bit installed. I want to set the depth of the cut so it covers the entire workpiece, maybe a millimeter deeper than that, but do not go too deep that this bearing misses your jig, because that would be a bad day. You'd have to redo everything over again. So I drilled the hole like I said before, so I'm going to route this thing. Again, I can't do it on camera because I need two hands. So I'll come back with the results. So what I'm going to do is just start cutting and spiraling out a little bit of material at a time until the bearing here rides on the jig. Okay, I routed that out. It looks pretty nice. So I'll just remove the jig from the workpiece. Let's pry it by hand here. And next I will polish this piece up. And I did a video on how to polish acrylic. I would recommend doing it by hand. I would never flame polish acrylic since that leaves stresses in the material. Okay, it's all polished up. Then I remove the masking. Look at that. That is gorgeous. That looks sort of professional. And I polished it using the damp rag and Novus 2 as I presented in the other video to get that result. And yeah, it did take a few steps mainly to make this jig, but if you have more holes to make, you don't have to go through all that process anymore. You just put the jig on where you're going to make the hole in the workpiece and drill the hole for the bearing and just route it out and you're done. Pretty simple. But yeah, there you go. That's how you put beautiful looking holes in acrylic. Thanks for watching.